Thank you so much for having us. Zahirah, can you help focus our conversation around two big questions? How does money help the movement, and why fund the foster care movement?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lizzie, and thank you so much for having us here. To start, at the Ralph M. Parsons Foundation, we fund in the areas of health, human services, education, and civic and culture, supporting a range of efforts, many of which focus on vulnerable children and families, including those touching the child welfare system. We also fund strategic initiatives such as Foster Together Network that bring together public and private partners to better support youth in foster care. We all know it takes a village to raise a child. One way to understand that proverb is that children exist in an ecosystem, and we are all responsible for helping them thrive. When children are removed from their parents and enter the child welfare system, which is more often due to neglect rather than abuse, we need to help keep them safe, build their resilience in healthy ways, and lay the foundation for them to thrive. In LA, there are many different types of organizations that do this work. At the foundation, we fund some of these entities, including foster family agencies like Hillsides that connect youth to caregivers, advocates like Casa LA who connect youth to services, mentors like Friends of the Children and Peace for Kids who aid youth, and entities like 3FN that make connections with broader community partners, including the faith community, and ensure youth have a host of supports. The entire ecosystem is designed to protect our children, to help them grow up in safe and healthy environments while they await reunification with their parents, because most children in foster care are reunited. Lizzie, can you give examples of funded supports that help maintain existing connections for youth, those that existed before they entered care?
Kids removed from their homes do much better when they remain in their own communities with their own friends, neighbors, coaches, and faith communities. We don't want to take kids from their communities, and we know that having caregivers in communities with high rates of child welfare involvement is essential to building successful young people and reuniting families. As a result of this, philanthropy has invested in efforts to help increase the number of resource families, or the new term for foster families, in communities that have shortages of homes, like in South LA. Philanthropy and LA County have partnered together in putting on a number of recruitment events and also in supporting organizations like 3FN. Research shows us that a lack of stability decreases the likelihood of on-time graduation or even graduating at all. Lack of stability also makes it hard for kids to develop and maintain supportive relationships with teachers and peers during a time when they need it most. Philanthropy has also funded, in this space, funded work with DCFS and the school districts to help keep foster youth at their school of origin, funding transportation like Hop, Skip, Drive, and coordinators to help ensure that foster youth, especially teenagers, can stay at their original schools. And finally, by keeping kids in their communities and in their schools, we prevent unfortunate outcomes that we know too many foster youth face. Lower graduation rates, both for high school and college, higher likelihood of juvenile justice involvement, and higher risk of homelessness. And I know we've heard about that from the other panelists today. Another reason, I think maybe the most important reason to fund this work, is that young people themselves have asked us to support these efforts. Philanthropy, including partners like Zahirah at Parsons, have invested significantly in working with DCFS and community stakeholders to develop a framework for engaging faith communities in support of children, youth, and families within the child welfare system. As part of this work, several months ago now, it feels like a lifetime ago, we held a listening session with foster youth at one of the DCFS teen clubs. And the teen clubs are held at different churches and community centers around the county, and they offer young people support and include life skills and fun activities for them. During this listening session, young people told us what they needed and wanted in terms of support from adults and from DCFS. And what they shared is that they wanted someone who would just call them and ask how they were doing, not someone that was paid to check on them, but just a loving adult to call, reach out, and just be there for them just because. This isn't a heavy lift, and it's something I think that we could do together to make sure that young people are able to feel supportive and to thrive.
Thank you for that, Lizzie. You know, I think having at least one consistent loving adult in our lives is what we all really need. And the fact that these teens are able to so eloquently and beautifully not only state that, but seek it out is wonderful, which highlights two pieces. It highlights the need to connect with those with lived experience when supporting this work: caregivers, youth in care, birth parents, which Jessica also mentioned earlier, as well as charity. And so while also remembering that we're talking about humans, not statistics. While most statistics are trends around foster youth or troubling, they're not determinative. All of our children are individuals whose life trajectories can be impacted by a number of different factors included in the ecosystem of supports. And these supports also extend to the supports that are provided to birth parents, including those that facilitate reunification. One of our grantees, Good Plus Foundation, focuses on fatherhood, ensuring that fathers are actively incorporated into the lives of their children and given the tools they need to be strong caregivers and co-parents. That organization is even training DCFS to ensure that we keep learning to better meet the needs of our youth. Lizzie, as we wrap up, are there any words of advice that you would use to encourage other foundations, institutions, or corporations to become involved in funding foster care initiatives?
Yes. To be successful in this space, we really need to continue creating public-private partnerships to support the work and move it forward. Public funding cannot do this all alone. It's essential to sustainable work, but public funding is not flexible or nimble. The Department of Children and Family Services cannot and really should not do this work alone. They have been tremendous partners. They see the value of and the need for partnership in this space. And it's imperative that organizations like 3FN and other groups on the ground serving families and children are supported as trusted partners. Public funding, for example, can't be used for things like food for focus groups or stipends for young people. It can't be used for pilot projects, which are essential for us to be innovative in this space and to test new strategies for outreach and support. Philanthropic funding, so money from foundations, individuals, or corporations, that's really the secret sauce. That funding lets us try new ideas and strategies that can then hopefully be sustainably funded by the public sector. So the philanthropic funding is what allows us to be innovative and act much more quickly than we can with public sector dollars.
Absolutely, and we've seen these partnerships work incredibly well. One example is just the standing up of the Center for Strategic Partnerships, which is your work, Lizzie, that has so beautifully impacted the county. And it's also been used in terms of piloting and testing new concepts. Years ago, Philanthropic Resources funded a pilot program providing emergency childcare dollars to support working families that suddenly found themselves caring for a young child in foster care. So in this type of situation, someone might get a call in the middle of the night telling them that they're going to have a young child who will have the next day. And if that individual needs to go to work, there was this fear that they wouldn't have support in terms of childcare. The pilot was successful in standing up this type of emergency childcare, and it was so successful that the state was able to further fund it to the tune of $30 million. So that level of leveraging of the investment of private resources that then is able to unlock much larger public dollars that are larger, they're more sustainable, and allow for a brighter breadth of how those dollars are implemented are one way that private and public funds can start to work together.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of just what we can do when we build a successful public-private partnership. And before I close, I just want to say thank you to the folks on the phone that have been part of the folks on the line that have been part of these partnerships. So Zahirah, the Parsons Foundation, I know we have other foundation partners joining us, and of course our partners at DCFS and all our faith-based partners. Together we're really able to push this work forward. And by building these partnerships, so private funding that can then be leveraged and potentially unlock significant public dollars, we are really able to do the most good for our young people and families. And thank you so much to everyone for being part of that.